Good morning. My name is Caitlin. Still weird. I don't know why it's weird for me to say my name out loud, but I keep saying that. It's Wednesday, so midweek, feeling a bit tired. I did wake up earlier today than usual. So that's probably contributing to the tiredness, but what can you do? Today I want to talk about perfectionism and how that's affected me, and how I think that's related to being neurodivergent. So last night, I was talking about the podcast to my partner. They found it on the TV when we were listening to Christmas music on the TV, because I was on my Spotify and they were turning music on my Spotify, and they're like, "Wait, you started a podcast?" And I was like, "Oh, well, now you know." Not that I was hiding it per se. I didn't really want anyone that I know to listen to it. And I also was like, you don't want to listen to this because it's literally everything that I talk to you about anyways. Except this is my way of getting it out and being able to listen back to my own perspective and try to have I know I talked briefly last episode about how I don't have a really strong identity. And so I feel like talking through things on here and listening back to it, I can kind of, I don't know, see myself from an outside perspective, and maybe I'll be more confident knowing myself better that way. It's kind of hard to explain, and maybe some people can relate on that. I think if you're neurodivergent or autistic, you probably could relate on some of that. Just feeling like external factors tend to define me more than internal factors, or I just don't really know who I am, even though I'm in my head all the time. It's hard to figure out myself and what defines me. So I think listening to myself talk is helpful. Not in a narcissistic way, but just because I talk and then I don't remember what I said, or I don't really get to see how I present myself. I don't even know what I'm like, really. At least not from the outside. So it's good for me to kind of see that. But they were like, "So does that mean you're going to start recording music again?" And that's something that I hadn't talked about on the podcast yet. Is I went to college for 2.5 years for music. And 2 of those years I was majoring in voice. So I know you probably can't tell based on how I talk, because I talk really shaky and timid. But I actually, not to toot my own horn, I think I have a pretty good voice based on the fact that a lot of people have told me that. So, I think they're right. But I also practiced a lot, and I performed fairly frequently. And so sorry, one sec. Noises. I was getting a little warm with my double jackets. It's really cold out. It was 26 degrees when I left the house today. But it is December now, so it makes sense, I guess. Anyways, I used to be a voice major, and I, have written songs as well. That in various points in my life, it's been very therapeutic for me to have songwriting as an outlet. I really enjoy singing. I am very self-conscious though, and so it's really hard for me to, for some reason, singing feels more vulnerable than just talking. And I think it's because of the perfectionism. I want it to be perfect all of the time. And when I'm practicing, it's not going to be perfect, and I don't want anyone to hear me practice, so I don't sing. Back when I was in school, we had, sound insulated music rooms, and I was able to practice and no one could hear me, and that was great. And I would totally love to have one of those. At work, we have these sound insulated phone booths, but I haven't tried singing. I have a feeling people could still hear enough that I just don't want anyone to be like, oh, are you singing? Sing for me. I feel like, why do people think that it's okay to just ask, if they know you sing, why do they feel it's okay to just ask you to sing for them? Like, randomly. Like, if somebody was like, oh, I like to, play tennis, they wouldn't be like, okay, well, show me. It's like, oh, why do I have to show you? Like, no. Or like, oh, they say like, oh, I like to knit sweaters. Somebody's not gonna be like, knit me a sweater, you know? They're not gonna, like, this, people don't do that. So why do they expect you to just start singing? It just, I don't like it. Happens a lot, and I'm like, I want to sing on my own terms. If you tell me you want me to do something, I'm most likely gonna want to do it even less. That's PDA, which stands for pathological demand avoidance. After listening to a podcast on that, there are definitely better ways of describing that, because it's not pathological by definition. That's just not correct. And it's not always demand avoidance. It's a persistent desire for autonomy. That's the best way to, and that I've heard, to describe that, where I don't want to feel like I am being forced to do anything. I want to do it on my terms. And I also want it to be good, and that's partially why I want it to be on my terms, is I want to make sure I've prepared and that I know this is going to be good. And I don't have the equipment to record music. I don't have a microphone that's for recording. I just have one for performing. I don't have any type of recording equipment. I have a Mac that I could get software for, but I don't have the software. I don't really know how to use the software. I never got that far in college. I was going to do that class in my 6th semester and never got there, because I got sick and had to come home and switch to an online program, because you can't do music online. So I switched degrees completely. And anyways, I completely burnt out and had a really, it's really traumatic for me, and had a really hard time with feeling like I completely lost my passion and ability to perform and to enjoy music. Like, there was a whole few months where I didn't even listen to music because it was so triggering for me, because I felt like I had everything that I had planned my life for the past 4 years from high school to college. It was gone. It was completely gone, and I couldn't do anything about it, and I was just sick. Not knowing that that was autistic burnout, and I just wasn't taking care of myself at all, and didn't know what my needs were, and just totally pushed myself way past the limit. But all that to say, for me to want to get back into music, and for me to even want to record, I feel like I need to have all of those things. I need to have the proper equipment. I need to know how to use it. I need to know how to like make it sound good, like how to mix it properly, how to have instruments in the background, or how to, like, I feel like I can't do it. I can't put my voice out there in a singing capacity without having it be perfect. And I don't know how to get around that. I don't know how to just start singing. Like, there was one night where I had a lullaby or something that I was like, or it wasn't even a lullaby, it was just a song. I was going through a kind of a rough week. I had had a lot of meltdowns and panic attacks, and those are different, but I had both. And I was just, it was a bad week. It was so many things going on in my brain and my body, and things that I just really couldn't control at all. And I was telling my partner that the song that I like had pop into my head was really helping, and that I liked singing it in the car to myself. So that's the only time I really sing, because no one can hear me. And they were like, well, sing it for me. And I was like, okay. And like, again, that, and I don't know if I did that night or not, but I mentioned it again, and I was the one who wanted to sing. Like, I had mentioned it. I was the one who was talking about wanting to sing it, and it took me like 5 minutes of just being like, and then like not being able to get anything out, and then like trying over and over and over again for me to finally be able to start singing. And I'm like, why is it so hard for me to do something that I know I enjoy doing by myself, but when somebody else is perceiving it, it's like, it almost feels impossible. And I know, based off of hearing other people talk and podcasts and Instagram reels and reading about various autistic people, that that's a thing that happens. So I know, like, it's not just me, which helps me feel a little bit better about it. I know why it's happening, and I really need to know why things are happening in order for me to move past it and not totally spin out. It still doesn't make it go away, though. I'm always so freaking tired. I'm sorry. Oh. Yeah, I don't know how to fix that other than to quit this job, and I really don't want to do that. Freaking phone! Anyways, I'm gonna just start turning it off completely when I record, because it's driving me nuts. It just goes buzz, and I don't know, sometimes you can hear it, sometimes you can't, but I can hear it, and it drives me crazy. Anyways, only reason why I have the ringer on at all is because sometimes people from work will call me, and while I'm at work, and I have to answer it, and half of the time I don't even see that, and it's like, come on. Anyways, I just find it really, really hard to get started on something that I'm not going to be perfect at, or that I can't be perfect at 100% of the time. And unfortunately, singing is just one of those things. You're not going to sound absolutely perfect 24/7. I'm sorry. Whew. Sorry about that. I don't know what's happening there. But like, just really, really difficult for me to understand my brain and how to like get past that. Like, I want to be able to move through it and not struggle with that, but I don't know how. People will just say, just jump in, just do it, and like, that doesn't work for me. I just pushing myself has only ever led to burnout for me. Rarely ever has it led to a feeling of personal growth. And usually that's very momentary, and I still end up feeling burnt out afterwards, and it's like, well, why? Like, I did it though, but like, so it's just, I have to figure out how to nurture myself, and it's really hard when I really only just started, and I have to keep reminding myself, I just started. I just found out, discovered through self-diagnosis, like, that I'm autistic. I won't even know for sure based off of professional diagnosis until 2 days from now on Friday. So it's just, I'm barely scratching the surface of how to help myself and how to better accommodate myself and try to nurture myself in ways that I know will not burn me out, like pushing myself doesn't work. I do that, I've done that my whole life, and it just doesn't work, and I am left feeling more broken than ever. And so, how can I take care of myself so that I'm able to do the things that I enjoy or that bring me a sense of satisfaction? I don't know. If you guys have any tips, let me know, because it is it's difficult. I've had lots of hobbies over the years, things that I enjoy doing, that I would make gifts for people, and I would get really into it and be like, this is great, and then, eventually something else comes along, which again feels a little bit more like the ADHD thing than autism, with the changing and novelty seeking. But I do tend to stick with a hobby for a relatively long time until I get frustrated with it, until it becomes too much. And so I think the problem for me is everything becomes too much at some point, it feels like. If I can't do it perfectly, I don't want to do it. And if I focus so hard on something, it's just overwhelming. Like, I have a really hard time with dedicating everything to one thing, but that tends to be my tendency to do that. So I'll put all of my effort and attention into something, and then I get overwhelmed and stop because I can't keep going at the pace that I'm at. So I don't really know how to fix that or help that or manage that. So that's something that I'm working on. I want to be able to sing and not care, but I don't know how to do that. I enjoyed performing when I had practiced for, weeks to months in advance. And I absolutely loved the feeling of entrancing an audience with my voice. Like, that was awesome. The fact that people liked my song enough during an awards ceremony that I was asked by our school's music director to perform in for or whatever, and that he told me after the fact that people don't normally stop and listen. It's normally just kind of like background music, and the fact that everyone stopped and paid attention and just was silent listening to me sing a song that I wrote with my friend. He wrote the words and I wrote the music, and it was great. I wrote it as a way to prove to him that he wasn't a bad songwriter. He was like, I just feel like I'm not good at writing songs. And I was like, send one to me. And so he did, and in like an hour and a half, I wrote him a song, wrote the music and the melody to it, and was like, here, now it's our song, and I'm gonna perform it, and you're gonna see that you're a great artist. And people really did like it, and I performed that song more than any of the other songs that I've written. And I really enjoy that feeling, and I know I could do it again. But I'm afraid to. I also just feel like I can't. Like, I don't know why I'm having executive dysfunction when it comes to this. The more I unmask, the more I'm afraid of skill regression as well. I do feel like that's happening a little bit. A little bit with driving, which is the worst thing, because that's already something that stresses me out, and I don't want to be bad at driving. So, like, I'm just trying to not freak out and know that, like, this is part of the process, and, you know, you were extremely miserable and unsustainable before you started unmasking, and so, like, this is necessary. Whatever happens, you're doing what's best for you. You know, just things that I'm telling myself all the time to try and reassure myself, like, this is okay, this is normal, this happens to a lot of autistic people when they find out they're autistic later in life, and I don't know, it's not fun, and it's not easy, and I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding around everything related to me, honestly. I feel like that's one reason why I really liked emo music when I was in high school, is I really have never felt understood. There are very few people in this world that I feel understand me most of the time. And it's very isolating, and it makes me want to isolate even more, because why even try if nobody's going to understand me anyways? No matter how hard I try to explain myself, I'm still going to be this mysterious person to them. I mean, I did enjoy that sometimes, you know, like sometimes it is fun to be like, I'm a mystery. But most of the time it's just isolating, and it's like, why can't you see things from my perspective? I'm constantly trying to see things from your perspective. Why can't you give me the same, I don't even know what word fits best there, but like attention and care, and yeah, again, I put 100% into whatever it is. So if I am, you know, close friends with someone that I really care about, I tend to like go way too far into it, and they become more important to me than I am to them, and I feel like I spend way more time thinking about them and than they think about me, and so it makes me want to not even try, you know, like, why even bother if I'm not going to be able to do it right anyways, and am only going to be left feeling like, wow, I devoted all of this energy to learning about someone and caring about them when it was really a waste of my time and energy. Like, so it's just trying to figure out how to do something not perfectly, how to do something that's, I don't know, like, how do you do something part of the way? Like, I was telling you guys yesterday about how I'm trying to partially plan meals and not 100% plan down to the ingredient, and not like not plan, but I have a really hard time doing that. How do you do something halfway? I think that's why I got so mad at my mom when I was younger, when she would say that I was half-assing something, when I was just like, I don't do that. Like, I don't do something halfway. Now, yeah, there were definitely times where, like, she asked me to clean something and I didn't want to, so I just did, like, the fastest job ever, and I know that's what she was referring to. But to me, it felt like I, don't try at stuff. And, like, yeah, okay, maybe in that one instance I didn't try very hard, or, like, it was too much for me in the moment. And I was like, I don't want to do this. The fact that you had to ask me, the fact that you told me I had to do it, the demand avoidance, like, all of this stuff was happening. I realized that in hindsight. But in the moment I was just angry. Because I was like, I don't know how to do anything halfway. What are you talking about? I don't handle confrontation very well. I really prefer to avoid it as much as possible. So, yeah, it was problematic. I have a lot of weird, conflicting memories of my childhood and conflict, and yeah, I know, such is life, I guess. But I want to be able to do things I enjoy and not worry so much about it being perfect. I want to do things that bring me joy and actually be able to enjoy them. And not be like, oh, yeah, like, I kind of enjoyed doing this, but, like, the whole time I was thinking about how it wasn't perfect. So, yeah, that was me rambling on for a half hour on perfectionism and how I just can't do anything because if it's not perfect, I'm not doing it. And yeah, so I don't know if anybody else can relate. This podcast is one thing that my partner was like, well, you can do that. And that, I feel, is more vulnerable than singing. And I was like, I feel like this is just me talking to a wall. Because in reality it is. I'm just in a booth talking to my computer. I have very few listeners, so it doesn't even feel like... It's very disconnected. For some reason, even singing into the computer is hard for me to imagine doing. But this is like, well, I'm just talking. I don't need a bunch of fancy equipment. I know that, like, it probably could have better sound quality if I did have fancy equipment, but, like, for some reason, this is not something that I put that much gravity and weight into. It's just like, this is something I'm just doing for me. And maybe it's because I had watched, though, That's Just My Autism, listened to that podcast by Melissa, and just was like, well, she can do it. Why can't I? Like, why can't I use, just what I have and talk into the computer and find like-minded individuals to talk to, and figure out a way to verbally process and share my thoughts that are rattling around in my head all the time. For some reason, this doesn't feel like something I have to do perfectly. I feel like doing this perfectly is being just as real as I can be. Being as honest as I normally am, but, just being open and honest and as unmasked as I can. Just being me, and so that I can see what I'm really like alone, and how how my brain works and kind of get an outside perspective watching back on it. And like, for some reason, that is doing it perfectly. I don't need the fancy equipment to make it sound better because that's not the goal of this. And I feel like the goal of singing for me is to sound good and to captivate someone. And so I'm like, there's so much pressure that I put on myself when I'm singing. See, talking this stuff out is great. Like, I'm going to listen back to this on my way home from work today and be like, wow, I understand now. No, we'll see. But it's just, I don't know why I feel that differently. Like why I can't take the gravity and weight out of singing and just do it. But I'm gonna try to keep unpacking that. Oh my god, I swear, I'm like always so freaking tired. It's the worst. I want to be awake. My neck and head started throbbing from that. That's great. That happens to me a lot, unfortunately. I am going to see a rheumatologist in January, just to confirm that my issues are hypermobile EDS and not something like fibromyalgia, which I am like really certain based off of the research that I was able to do on my own. But again, better to have a professional diagnosis and evaluation because I'm not a doctor, and maybe there are other things out there that I'm not aware of, and that it could be. So I don't really want to be walking around with the wrong diagnosis. But I also think that it's been really helpful for me to have this diagnosis, so I'm not gonna like say that I'm grateful for the diagnosis that I have because it's helped me a lot, and just being able to accommodate myself at work and not feel bad about it, and not feel like I have a good argument now when people are like, oh, but you're so young, you shouldn't have any problems. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, I do. So, I've got a medically diagnosed reason for this. Just because you think I'm too young to feel as achy as you are when you're 40, I'm not even that far away from 40. Like, 15 years is not all that much, but I get it. People are like, oh, like when I was your age, I was full of life, and my joints didn't hurt every morning and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I do. So I'm sorry you can't believe that because you didn't personally go through it, but that's my reality. And it's hard to not get defensive when people just say something like that in passing, because it's like, I know you have no idea what I go through every day. But it's hard not to get offended when it's like, you don't know. Like, don't say it. Like, don't say, like, oh, when you get to my age, you're gonna wish you were back at this age. I'm like, yeah, probably. But also, I'm going through the same stuff you're going through because of my condition. So, sorry. Anyways, ranty on that. As you can tell, very touchy subject for me. I do not like being invalidated. I don't think anyone does, but it's really hard for me not to say something. Like, again, persistent desire for autonomy. I want to be respected, and I want to not have to, I don't want to have to argue. I don't want to have to educate everybody all the time, but I also feel like I can't not do it. I'm not going to just let somebody walk around blissfully ignorant. Like, if I don't get to be blissfully ignorant, you don't get to be blissfully ignorant. Okay. It's not fair. But yeah. So yeah, I'm waiting for the autism diagnosis, but I'm like, very certain. I don't know for sure about the ADHD one. Again, I feel like in my evaluations, I was talking mostly about my autism because that was like the big thing for me at the time. And it still is, but now that I'm done with the evaluation process, I'm like, oh, maybe I could have done this better. Or not better, but like more transparent. I don't know. I tried to be as transparent as possible. I really did. I whatever happens is gonna happen. I feel like I did pretty much the best that I could have done in all of the sessions that we had, and if I feel like I don't get the right diagnosis, I'll just tell her that, and I'll talk about it, and we'll figure it out. I know there's no point in freaking out about it. But to have the diagnoses helps me to not feel invalidated by other people. Because again, I take on a lot of what other people say, and my identity tends to be really wrapped up in other people's perspectives, not my own. And so I just tend to doubt my own perspective a lot. And so when I have this professional diagnosis, then I feel confident in myself and what I'm saying, and that, nobody can come at me and say, no, you're not. And I'm like, well, actually I am. It's on paper, so... And I also just feel more legitimate when I'm trying to educate someone, because it's like, actually, I do know what I'm talking about. The professional confirmed that this is what I have, and all of the research that I did also supports that. And so, like, here's all of the stuff that I know, that I don't think you know. And I try to be as polite as possible when I'm talking to people. And I think for the most part I am. I don't think I offend people all that often. I wonder sometimes if I'm gonna get more direct and, like, perceived to be rude the more I unmask, but I'm also like, if it makes me feel better about myself, or it makes me feel better to do things unmasked, why not? So we'll see. It's a balancing act, like everything in life. So I'm just trying to, right now, go through the process of unmasking and trying to break down my perfectionism, and we're gonna see how that goes. And who knows, maybe I'll go too far and I'll just be totally unmasked and people will get upset with me, and I'll have to start masking it a little bit more, and I'll find a middle ground. Who knows? I have a feeling I'm never going to be completely unmasked at work, because I just feel like we don't live in a society where that's even ever going to be socially acceptable. So, but I feel like I'm able to do that a lot more at this job than other jobs, and so that's one of the reasons why I'm trying to stick it out. And even though I feel exhausted every night and every weekend and all the time, I just don't want to... I don't want to fail. I don't want to not be able to work. I don't want to feel like I am incapable or not able to do something. But again, I have a disability. So sometimes, maybe it will be disabling enough that I can't work a normal 9 to 5. I don't know. Right now I'm still trying to figure it out, and I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing for now, trying to be, my own advocate. And yeah, I'm running out of words. It's like a super long podcast now, so I'm gonna let you guys go. And if you can relate or have any comments you want to say, or want to connect, I will put my Instagram in the show notes. And then if there's a different way that you'd prefer to contact me, just leave a comment and I will try my best to accommodate that in the next episode. Again, I do these almost every day of the week, weekday, just because it's easy for me to get into the habit of coming into work early and recording. So there will be another episode pretty soon, if not tomorrow. And so just let me know, and you are enough.